For 27 years, Yolanda Thomas has run a childcare business called Best Beginnings in her home in Pittsburg, California, a small city in Contra Costa County.
I'm a large family home childcare, so that means I care for 14 children. It's mixed ages. The youngest I have just turned 1, all the way up to right now, age 8.
Yolanda serves many children from low-income families who receive childcare subsidies from the state. And usually she has children start with her as babies and stay until they're in kindergarten. And they often keep coming to her for after school up until they're 12. But in recent years, as California expanded transitional kindergarten to serve all 4-year-olds, she's seeing many parents decide to leave her care and send their kids to public TK. Yolanda says the exodus was triggered by a big PR campaign.
It was just a big, heavy, like media rollout. There were posters everywhere. There were billboards on buses, billboards on the side of freeways.
For the first time ever, Yolanda has found herself having to try to convince parents to stay, telling them her program offers equal preparation for kindergarten as TK would.
I do the same thing TK does. I teach and prepare your child for kindergarten. Just last week, I'm having a conversation with a parent back and forth through text while in the middle of a lesson with the children. Like, no, you don't have to worry about TK. Your child is already enrolled in TK at Best Beginnings. Oh, well, my friend said, I'm like, well, let your friend enroll their child in the program, but you already have TK. You have had TK since your son was 19 months old. It's like me having to pit myself against TK and come up with this whole big flashy presentation about what I'm doing to keep you here.
This is Education Beat, getting to the heart of California schools. I'm Zaidee Stavely. This week, childcare providers struggle as their 4-year-olds enroll in TK. Across California, childcare and preschool providers say the state's expansion of free transitional kindergarten for all 4-year-olds is drawing students out of existing programs while offering little support to help providers adapt. TK is free, and that's hard for families to pass up. As California's early education landscape has shifted, many providers like Yolanda Thomas say they feel left behind. My colleague Betty Márquez Rosales wrote about this for EdSource. Hi, Betty.
Hi, Zaidee.
So, Betty, California opened up this new grade for 4-year-olds, transitional kindergarten. What is the idea behind TK?
The idea behind TK is really to make access universal for young children. And so you have this new public school grade, transitional kindergarten, that is now free, fully available for every single 4-year-old in the state of California, regardless of income, regardless of background, where they might live. Every single 4-year-old can now enroll, and it's a part of the public school system. And yeah, access is really the point of it.
And so what has that rollout looked like?
It's taken a few years. So TK was created back in 2010, and it wasn't until 2021 that the state passed a law that gradually expanded TK access. At the time that the expansion started, it was really only available to a small group of 4-year-olds who had fall birthdays. And every year since then, it's expanded little by little to include more and more 4-year-olds. And now it doesn't matter when their birthday lands, as long as they're 4 years old, they can enroll in TK.
So are a lot of parents choosing TK over other programs?
An increasing amount of parents are choosing TK. The number of 4-year-olds enrolled in the grade has gone up every single year. In terms of whether they're choosing it over other programs, that's a little bit more complicated, and different people will say different things. You have a group of people saying that preschools and childcare providers who previously might have enrolled a 4-year-old, that they are really struggling. Sometimes they're even shutting down because the 4-year-olds help offset costs of care that might be higher if someone only enrolls much younger children, right? The cost of caring for an infant, for example, at a family child care center will be higher than a 4-year-old. They have different needs. Now, we don't know the degree of the problem as clearly as maybe we would like to know, right? And a lot of that comes down to the complexity of the early ed space in the state of California. It is managed by several different agencies. There are many different programs. And so because you don't really have, a single agency overseeing these programs and maybe ensuring that the data collection practices look similar across the board, it becomes really difficult to analyze where different children are going and whether maybe TK has meant that 4-year-olds are entirely going to TK versus other programs.
So why would parents choose to go to TK over other programs?
There's a few different reasons, and it might depend on each family. So one of the reasons often given is because it is free, right? And it's pretty straightforward. You can enroll in your local public school, assuming that they have the available space, which can be a challenge in some areas. It also, some parents believe that it might give them easier access to the local school that they might want their child to enroll in. And because they're already enrolled since TK, they might have an easier point of access once they go into other grades.
Is there a difference in the education provided between TK and other providers, like family childcare providers like Yolanda or private childcare centers or preschools?
What experts will say about what a 4-year-old needs in early education is they need learning that is play-based. It's going to be engaging for their age. And so you can find that in a transitional kindergarten classroom. You might also be able to find that in a family childcare center. You might have access to that in a local provider who is licensed to teach preschool, who might already be preparing them to enter kindergarten in a way that they might also be prepared in a TK classroom. So it really will depend. There is a difference in the teacher requirements. So TK teachers are required to have a BA, and they also have to have a teaching credential. That does lock out many preschool providers who they might have the experience, but maybe they haven't had the access to get a credential or a college degree. There is another difference when it comes to ratio. So in TK, the ratio is 1 to 10, and most classes are at least 20 children. And in a preschool or a family childcare setting, you will often have a ratio of 1 to 8 or even 1 to 6. It really depends.
Yolanda Thomas says some parents have taken their kids out of her home-based childcare and enrolled them in TK, not because it's free, but because they think it will better prepare them for kindergarten. One parent had a state subsidy for childcare, but gave it up for their child to attend TK. They soon realized that TK was not a good fit because the elementary school required them to drop off after 8 a.m. and pick up by 5 p.m. Yolanda offers drop-off as early as 6 a.m. and pick up at 6 p.m.
They couldn't get there at 5 and they couldn't get there in the morning by 8. They had to be to work by 8. So it was just a crazy situation. They wanted to come back, but they found they couldn't because number one, they lost their subsidy. Number two, I did not have space for them anymore. And then they had to go back to the end of the list, to be able to get subsidy again.
She says family childcare providers like her offer something else that TK programs often don't: personal, loving care.
We bring that personal side, we love and hug on you a little bit more. We don't just stay between the AM snack, PM snack, dinner type rules. If you're hungry, we're going to fix you something to eat. So it's more mirrored closer to home and giving that type of loving support that a child is used to. And that's what leads most parents to select family home childcare, because that's what they want their child to be involved in and wrapped up in and be able to get that personal touch.
For years, counties across the state have certified childcare programs like Yolanda's that meet certain requirements to prepare children for kindergarten.
it was a savior because now the kindergarten teachers were like, yes, we don't have to teach the basics. We don't have to teach shapes. We don't have to teach tying shoes. We don't have to take time to teach alphabets and writing names because we have a whole community of people doing that for us. So that was the push. Now with the TK rollout, all that is forgotten. And now the only thing that exists is TK. And that's where all the funds and the focus is going.
So, Betty, let's talk about some solutions. What are some of the changes proposed either in the budget or in other legislation that might help preschool providers outside of TK?
So preschool providers were pretty upset when Governor Gavin Newsom released his most recent budget proposal that happened in May. And they were upset because he proposed cutting a few things. So one of them was spaces for subsidized childcare. And he also proposed cutting the cost of living adjustment for state preschool and other subsidized childcare. And his proposal for the cost of living adjustment for school district, which includes TK, was higher than the cost of living adjustment for state preschool and other subsidized childcare. Now, the most recent legislative budget proposal would increase some subsidized childcare spaces rather than cutting them. And it's also proposing moving state preschool under Proposition 98, which is the way that TK is funded. There are some other potential solutions that are being recommended by advocates and researchers. These do include increasing the funding for childcare subsidies, including the rates that providers are paid per child that they're caring for, and also just improving communication across the board. There's a lot of 3-year-olds, for example, that are not in any publicly funded programs in the state of California, and there's providers who now don't have 4-year-olds enrolling as much as TK has expanded. So that is a potential connection that isn't quite happening and could be alleviated by some improved communication there.
You know, originally when the TK expansion was on the table, there was a lot of talk about a mixed delivery system, being able to offer universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds, not just in elementary schools, but also, you know, continuing to do so in Head Start programs, childcare centers, family home childcares. Is that happening anywhere where school districts are kind of partnering with these other programs to offer TK?
Some school districts are partnering with different programs. It's not happening across the board, though. And, you know, this expansion, it was extremely big, the biggest in the country when it comes to expanding a grade like this. But the resources required for that kind of collaboration to happen, that wasn't really a part of the expansion. And that is something that Yolanda, for example, brings up, that should be part of the solution to address the lack of balance in the early ed space. She wants to be a part of that expansion. She wants to make sure that her years of experience count.
Thank you so much, Betty.
Thank you, Zaidee.
Yolanda Thomas is taking classes 3 nights a week to get her bachelor's in early childhood education, one of the steps towards a teaching credential. But she says it's difficult after her already long workdays. She says the state needs to make it easier for family home childcare providers like her to get her credential.
A pathway that's equitable for us. Let us be at the table to help decide what this pathway is going to be, instead of other educated bigwigs that think they know it all. No, you have not worked in this field, so you don't know the 12, 16, 18-hour days that we have.
Her 27-year experience, she says, should count for something.
You know, there has to be a pathway where we can use our years of experience, not just towards one course, not just towards a certificate. You know, it has to be something substantial that we can say, this family home childcare and preschool did this. And this qualifies this family home childcare and preschool to be a part of this TK funding program. We should not be made to shut down what we built in order to go join another group and use what knowledge we have or learned or attained. We should be able to do just that right here where we're at.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Education Beat, getting to the heart of California schools, a production of EdSource. You can find a link to Betty's story in our podcast notes and at edsource.org. Our producer is Coby McDonald. Special thanks to our guest, Yolanda Thomas, and to reporter Betty Márquez Rosales. Thanks also to editor-at-large, John Fensterwald. Our theme music is from Blue Dot Sessions. This episode was brought to you by the Heising Simons Foundation. I'm Zaidee Stavely. Join us next week and subscribe so you won't miss an episode.